Hello, everyone. This is Marcus Turner, Program Manager with SCFD. I'm here with Dana Manutwane, also a Program Manager at SCFD.
Hello.
We are here to walk you through the 2018 Tier III grant application process. We're going to go through some really crucial information. This may be a good chance for you if you came to a workshop to get a refresher. If you weren't able to make a workshop, this will be a chance to learn a little bit new. So here we go. We're going to start with some basics. Important dates, 2018 grant deadlines. So the most important thing to remember here is that if you were applying in more than one county, this means even two counties, you must apply by the March 6th multi-county deadline. If you are applying in one single county, then you abide by the specific deadline for that county. For instance, if you're applying in only Denver County, you apply on March 9th, only in Arapahoe, March 13th, etc., etc. However, I must stress again, if you are applying in more than one county and you would like to apply for GOS or general operating support in one county and possibly project support in another county, you still must apply by that multi-county deadline of March 6th. It's a major bummer for us when people miss those deadlines, so please do keep that in mind moving forward. Before we jump into the grant application, we want to talk about a few other deadlines that are coming up. Coming up on Friday, February 16th, that's coming up very soon, is the final grant report deadline. This is where if you received funds in October of 2016, meaning you submitted a grant application in March of 2016, you then used those funds starting in October of 2016 through December of 2017. Now you must report on what you did with that money. So this final grant report is you telling us exactly what you did with those funds that you received October 2016 and used throughout the year of 2017. All final grant reports must be in by Friday, February 16th. If there's an organization that has an outstanding final grant report, meaning you don't submit one and tell us what you did, you're not going to be able to apply for any funds ever from SCFD until you turn in a final grant report for that year. So make sure that you've submitted all of that information. And a general reminder, this is for our new organizations, you must have received eligibility from SCFD prior to applying for funding in the 2018 Tier 3 cycle. So make sure you have your letter and your official documentation on hand. 2018 things to know. These are some new things. Zero paper copies in all counties.
Yay.
So you no longer have to print out any paper copies and deliver them to a county office. Everything is done online. So those deadlines I was talking about earlier are the online deadlines. So that's when you must submit those forms online. There's no more paper copies needed. And this is also a reminder about IRS Form 990. We gave a grace period last year for organizations where you were allowed to submit the Form 990N, which is the postcard version of the 990. This year, the Form 990N, that postcard, will not be accepted by SCFD. You must either submit a Form 990EZ or Form 990 itself. If you have any questions about the Form 990 and the way it's filled out or anything, feel free to give us a call here in the SCFD office. We'll talk you through that. Council guidelines are very important for any time you apply for SCFD. As you know, our councils for each county make their decisions per county. It's not anything where there's any consistency really. So please be sure that you read the guidelines for every county in which you're applying. They can be downloaded from the SCFD website, the Tier 3 page. We'll get to that in just a second. A helpful hint is that on that website, there's also a county guideline matrix that we've prepared that has all of the guidelines, the key points for the guidelines in one spot. So if you're applying in, say, Boulder and Jefferson counties, you can see exactly what you need to know for Boulder. You can see exactly what you need to know for Jefferson in one spot. We do recommend also looking at the guidelines themselves, not just the matrix, so you have a full understanding of what the councils are asking for their applications. All right, so now we're going to jump into the actual grant application itself. And this all starts on the SCFD website, scfd.org. This is where you're going to go to fill out the application. And you go to For Funded Orgs up here at the top. There'll be a little drop down, and you select Tier 3. That we're all talking about Tier 3 organizations here. Now, the Tier 3 pages have some interesting information you might want to review. There's all these buttons over here on the right-hand side, a good thing to look at. Maybe later if you want to review information about workshops or trainings, or maybe this tutorial or anything like that, that's where you'll find this. We are going to go to the grant application button right here. This will open up a page that has a lot of information about the 2018 grant application. Oh, look, there are all the deadlines. Again, everything you can see right there. We do try to repeat those deadlines as many times as possible, and so you have them in your head. So there's the multi-county deadline of March 6th, and next to each county deadline here are the guidelines for each county. So you can click and download these specific guidelines for each county. Here's Arapahoe County's just as an example, so you can see exactly what the funding criteria is for each county. We do recommend reviewing those. If you scroll down the page a little further, you get to 2018 grant application resources. You can sign up for an interview online. If you're planning to apply in multiple counties and you want to have your schedule down early, no, wouldn't be a bad idea to sign up for your interview now. The grant application directions, basically everything Dana and I will say today in writing, there you go. And there's that matrix that I was talking about before. So if you want to see, again, all of those guidelines in one spot so you can compare and contrast and see exactly what the county requirements for GOS, the county requirements for project grants, discretionary grants if they exist. You can see all of those things in one spot. And again, there are the deadlines up there at the top. All right, discretionary guidelines and change forms as well are here, but we're going to jump up back to the top and we're going to click Start 2018 Tier 3 grant application. You'll notice there's another button below here that says Review 2017 Tier 3 grant application. If you submitted a grant last year in March of 2017, you can use this to log in and view that grant. This is not where you start a new grant. This is for reviewing only. We're going to go to Start 2018 Tier 3 grant application. Okay, so I'm going to ask Dana to use her email because I think mine already exists in here. So we're going to do dana@scfd.org, and you'll notice where I'm doing this, okay? There's a login and there's a sign up. We're going to assume that we're doing this for the first time. So if you're starting a grant for a first time, you must sign up as a new user. Even if you submitted 18,000 SCFD grants prior to this, you will not be able to log in and access the 2018 grant. You must sign up as a new user. Basically, it's a portal directly into 2018, and if this were 2017, it would be a portal directly into that. So it's not the same portal going to the same place. You must sign up specifically for 2018. Okay, so we're signing up as Dana at SCFD, and we're going to enter our password here. Now, another thing to keep in mind is that this can be the same password and email that you have used in the past. They do not need to be different. They don't need to be unique emails and passwords. So make sure you have your email. It's the same password in both fields. We're going to click sign up. The email address already exists in our system. so we test a lot. So this is a good thing to know because if you've already done this once, you'll get this message that will say, you've already done this, make sure you log in to get your application. So let's try my other email here. I think I did this before. And we'll sign up for that. This email already exists in our system as well. So we test this a lot. So we need to try a different email. This is, again, a good thing to know so that you make sure you have the right email address. We're going to use Deborah Jordy's email address here. Et voila, there we are. So make sure once you know what email and what password you're using, so what I'm going to do right now is write down next to the computer exactly what email we used and what password we used, because we'll be able to look in the system and see what email you used to sign in, but we won't be able to see what password you've used. So make sure you record that email and that password, and you'll be able to distribute that amongst anyone else in your organization who wants to sign in and work. If you want to have multiple people working on the same application, you must use the same email and the same password for everyone. You can't log in and sign up as different email addresses. It will create different applications. So make sure you use that one email address, that one password. All right, so here we are in the grant application. I'm going to take you through the organization info tab and the narrative tab. So here we go, organization information. You enter the legal name of your organization. This is what appears on your taxes. It's not the colloquial name. It's not the DBA of your organization. That's what the second field is for. So we enter our colloquial, our DBA there. Your home county is where your office, your principal office resides. So you click that. And here's the type of application. If you're applying in one county only, you select single county. If you're going to abide by that March 6th deadline, then you click multi-county application. Okay, so then here's something that's a little bit different for this year: statutory discipline and focus areas. When the SCFD statute was reauthorized in 2016, the statutes, the disciplines that were appear there, changed slightly to be a little more broad. So you can select any of these five that apply to your organizations: performing arts, visual arts, cultural history, and natural sciences. And a little key to help you here is that this question mark box will give you helpful hints as you go through the entire grant application. So when you're selecting your statutory discipline, you can check all that apply or the one that most closely aligns. We're going to select, just for fun, those three. So you can select all the statutory disciplines that apply to your organization. Focus area is drilled down slightly. These might look slightly familiar because these are what used to be in the statute before it was reauthorized. So you can select the discipline, the area that your organization does here, as many as you need to: art, dance, music, and theater, we'll say, just for fun. So you select as many as you need, check all that apply, or the one that most closely aligns with your organization. All right, so now here's where we get the nuts and bolts of your organization: the primary address. A note for you here: the primary address must be a physical address. It should match what is on your Colorado Secretary of State listing. When you applied for your Secretary of State with the state of Colorado, that has to be a physical address. So make sure that all of that is matching here, because we do sometimes check to make sure that everything matches. You cannot use a P.O. box as the primary address. It must be a physical address. Please keep that in mind. The secondary mailing address is where you can use a P.O. box if you would like. If you have a mailing address that you use to collect all of your information, by all means, you can use that as the mailing address, a secondary address there, but the primary address should be the principal primary office physical address. Right, primary contact name and secondary contact name. You'll notice here that there are these red asterisks next to all of these here. That means that these fields are going to be required. Primary contact and secondary contact are really important information for us in the office to have, because we want to know who we can get a hold of if we have questions. So I'm going to put myself and Dana in here as the contacts, and you'll notice that we have a format here, so make sure you follow the format number. That's my cell phone number. We won't use that. We'll use our office number here, and we'll enter Dana, Program Manager. These are really crucial pieces of information to have when we need to reach out to your organization. We will send an email to both of these email addresses, or if we can't get a hold of someone via email, we will call the primary contact and then the secondary contact. So make sure those are filled out in their entirety. Then the last thing on this page is the most recently completed fiscal year start. So the year that you just wrapped up, that you just closed your books on, when did that year begin? And you can use this calendar feature right over here to pick. So say you're on a calendar year. Let's just use that as an example. So we just wrapped up, that started on January 1st of 2017, and then that fiscal year ended on December 31st of 2017. Okay, you'll notice that there's a formatting note here. It has to be a 2-digit month, a 2-digit date, and a 4-digit year. So be sure that if you do choose to type it in here, do not type 1/1/2017. The system will not accept that. It has to be 01/01/2017. Okay, so make sure all of that is in. So you get to the bottom of the page and you have these options: save draft or next. I'm going to click Save Draft so we can see what happens here. When you click Save Draft, everything should automatically save, and an application at the top will say, your application is saved as a draft. It's very reassuring. I think that it speaks with a very smooth voice. Your application is saved as a draft. And then you move on to Next. And when you click Next at the bottom of the page, it will automatically save your application. But if you're like me and slightly anal retentive, then you might want to click Save Draft at the end of the page as well. All right, so here we are in the narrative section. So this is where you're giving us the information about your organization, the kind of upper level, high level information about your organization, such as the current mission statement of your organization. Again, these question mark boxes that are down here will give you a little bit more specifics. This is a statement adopted by the board of directors, so make sure that you read these. They will give some really helpful hints. I'm going to go back to the SCFD website and pull some text off of here that we can copy and paste. This is a good thing to note, that you can copy and paste information from a website or from Word document or something like that into the grant application. And it will capture how many words you copied and pasted. So make sure you're checking how many words are in your mission statement or in your narratives here. This is as a 100 count for words, so make sure you follow that. And then we get to number 2, provide a brief history of the organization. So you have 500 words to tell us about the history of your organization, how you came to be. So let's just put in enough that we'll get up to 500. When you get up to 500 in this, it turns red and says you've reached your word limit, and it won't actually finish the sentence. It will stop you mid-sentence, so you stop at 500 words. And it will also take away all of your spacing and everything like that. So be careful of when you're copying and pasting that it's definitely under 500 words when you copy and paste that in there. Number 3, describe your organization's overall approach to program evaluation and how the organization measures impact. We want to know that your organization does these fantastic programs, and how do you measure who's coming, the impact it has in your community, the impact it has in your county. What do you do? Do you send out surveys? Do you send out people at the door to ask? Do you have some kind of anecdotal evidence? How do you evaluate your programs, and how does your board then have a message about moving forward, how they're going to advance your organization? Okay. Other than fundraising, list your organization's challenges. What plans have been made to address these challenges? So we all know as nonprofit organizations that fundraising is a big challenge. We all are looking for that money. But other than that, what is your organization's major challenges, and what are you doing to address these? These may be very specific to your organization, and that's fine. For instance, if you are an animal care organization or you do natural sciences, you have specific issues dealing with animals, and that's perfectly fine. Or if you're a performing arts organization, maybe you have issues with facilities or things like that. That all of that can go into this challenge section here. This is great for our cultural councils to see exactly what you're dealing with as an organization other than fundraising. All right, number 5 here is a and or question. Okay, this is a 2-part question. You have the choice if you would like to answer the first part or the second part or both. Okay, so describe your organization's education programs both on and off site, and or your most significant collaborations or interactions with other organizations and efforts. So you'll notice the word count here did go up to 800 words. So you have 800 words to tell us about your education programs or your collaboration programs, or you can tell us about both, whatever you would like to do here. We know that sometimes organizations have a lot to say about their education programs. It's a big part of what they do. So feel free to take all 800 words and tell us about all of those things. Or if collaboration is something you've really been working on in your organization, you want to take the entire field and do that there, by all means, you have the choice of what you want to do there. Number 6 is a different worded question than it ever has been, so please make sure you read it carefully. I'm going to read it out loud so we can follow along. Every resident in our region supports SCFD organizations through sales and use tax. As such, analyzing diversity, equity, and inclusiveness, DEI, is a best practice to ensure that organizations are authentically engaging the breadth of the community. As organizations examine their DEI practices, they can take measured steps to bring positive change, and the ongoing work of board members and senior level staff is essential to this evolution. Here's what you're going to give us based on this introduction. Please list examples of how your organization has implemented DEI practices. Share your organization's plan to increase the diversity, equity, and inclusiveness of your board, staff, volunteers, and patrons to better serve all the residents of our diverse district. And how will you evaluate or gauge your progress in this? DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusiveness, is a cornerstone of what SCFD is really trying to do. We are trying to make sure that organizations are reaching all residents of our entire 7-county district. So we need you to tell us in this question, how are you doing things to make sure that you're welcoming everyone, that you're reaching as many people as possible? And we fully understand that these definitions of diversity, equity, inclusiveness are different for every organization. So you may be at the very beginning point of saying, we're examining right now how we can reach into different neighborhoods and different areas of the region to invite more people to our performances. And that's fine. You may be at the point where you're offering specific programming for example, low income neighborhoods, or you're offering specific programming for people with disabilities, or you're offering special accommodations for those types of people, whatever the case may be. So this is the chance for you to tell us and the cultural council members how you're really doing this. Another big thing too is how are you adding different voices to your organization, whether it's through your staff, your board, your volunteers. It is important to make sure that you're capturing the voices of the entire community in your organization, and maybe your board members reflect different parts of the community, different segments of the community. That's a great thing to tell us about here as well. And like I said, just to reiterate, we understand that this is not a static question. There's no right or wrong answer in this question. We just want you to tell us, what are you doing to help make sure that everyone understands your organization and is welcome there. Moving on, we're at the board, volunteer, and staff section. So speaking of board and staff, this is where you get to tell us about how your board of directors really advances the mission of your organization. Is it a working board? Do they do actually the legwork of your organization? Is it a governance-only board where they vote and the staff does all the legwork? Things like that. So by all means, you can tell us about that here. Now here we are at number 8 and number 9 of this section, where we're at the first attachments that we've seen in the application so far. Okay, so this is where you're going to attach a specific file in here. So you make sure you hover over this and you'll see exactly what you need to include. So for the board of directors list, we need the name of the person, their position on the board, maybe they're the chair, they're the treasurer, they're the secretary, and then what their professional or expertise is and what they bring to your board. Maybe they're a lawyer, maybe they're a CPA, anything like that. So you can tell us about that, or community volunteer, things like that. All right, so once you have your board list prepared, you're going to go to select a file, and you're going to find exactly what you want to do. Okay, so you notice that I have all of these files here, but I'm only going to pick the one that is a PDF, because this system will only accept a PDF file. It will not accept Excel documents. It will not accept Word documents. It must be in PDF format, okay? This is just an example that I put in here, but you'll notice, I'm sure you saw that when I clicked upload, or when I click select a file, there was a progress bar here that will tell you the progress of it, and once it's done, it will say upload complete. So you can see that there. If you accidentally upload the wrong file, you can select a file again, go back and find what you want to do. Whoops. Let's go in here and you can upload. Are you sure you want to replace the file that you've already uploaded? Yes, that was the wrong file I put in before. Now here's the file I want to put in. The progress bar goes on, tells you I'm working on it, I'm working on it, I'm working on it, and now it's complete. Okay, upload complete, and the file name will change up here. All right, so the same thing is true for current staff. Now, if your organization has no staff and is only volunteers, you can upload a document that says that. But if you have key volunteers as well who really make the organization run, this is a good document to include those people on. Their name, their position and title in the organization, their email, their phone, and what their status is. Maybe they're a full-time employee, a part-time employee, they work on contract only, or they're a volunteer. Whatever the case may be, whoever you feel your key staff are. This does not need to be everyone in your whole organization. For instance, if you are a chorus, you do not need to upload every single member of your chorus in this document. Only the key decision-making staff are the ones we really need in this document here. So I'm going to upload, I'm going to choose another PDF here, and we're going to upload that. Uploading, upload 100%, complete. Uh, if you if your computer is having issues converting, there are some free online converters for PDFs. The best one is called Ice Cream PDF Converter. So it's an online version. So if you go online to that, you can upload an Excel document and it will spit back out a PDF for you to upload to us. Okay, so now we've uploaded these two documents. We got confirmation, upload complete, we're good. And number 10, do any members of your organization serve in capacity of both paid staff and board member? So if you say yes, that's totally fine. But if yes, you have to describe what policies are in place to ensure transparency and nonprofit best practices. For instance, do you have a conflict of interest policy? Is your executive director serving on the board, but they're an ex officio member and they're not a voting member? So this is where you have a chance to tell us exactly how you protect the transparency and best practices of your organization. For instance, if an executive director is on the board, are they having a say in how much they're being paid? That can be a conflict of interest, things like that. So this is a chance to tell us about those specific things. Right, we're nearing the end of this page here, so we're almost done with the narrative and organization info section, but we're come down to a crucial section, which is activities and attendance. So up here, you kind of have a glossary of what we're talking about when we talk about activities and attendance. Activities is programming that's open to the public, that's key, and that fulfills your organization's mission, exhibits, performances. Oh, Look what happened there. So while I'm talking, the form said, you seem to be talking a lot, so I'm going to go ahead and save it for you. It's a really polite form, but if you are working on the document for more than 5 minutes or so, the application will automatically save without you having to push save draft at the bottom. It's kind of a nice feature. If you leave the application open and then you go to another app and start working on your attendance records and things like that, it will automatically save for you. So that's a nice feature. Getting back to what I was saying before, these activities that we're looking for are educational programs, workshops, lectures, exhibits, performances. We're not talking about things like rehearsals, fundraisers, private meetings, private events, parades, fairs, religious services. We're talking about things that are open to the public and are mission-driven activities. Attendance is the total number of people who attend your activities. Attendees is the breakdown of the individual audience members who attend. So this attendees is the individual. Attendance is the total number of the group of people. Okay? So those are good terms to keep in mind as you go through this. Number 11 here is where you're going to upload 3 detail of activities records. Okay? There are 3 here because we want to know your most recently completed fiscal year. These will be actual numbers that you have records of. Your current fiscal year, this may be a mix of actual numbers and projected numbers if you because obviously you might not be completed with your current fiscal year yet. And then 11C is upcoming fiscal year. Okay, so those are all going to be projections. If you're doing, say, a concert in Douglas County and you project based on how many people had attended in the past, that number will work just fine there. We know those are estimates and projections, so they don't need to be exactly accurate. Okay, so what I want to show here too is an example of what this activity record can look like. These columns up here, date, county, location of activity, name of activity, number of occurrences, and total attendance are mandatory. So we need to have all of that data in this specific activity record. The date it took place, that's pretty self-explanatory. Say you did a series of performances over a weekend, then you say that there. The county where it took place, that's extremely important. The location of the activity, if you want to put the address in here, or if you want to be a little more general, you can do that. For instance, you see here that we have Arapahoe elementary schools. You don't need to list every single elementary school you went to. If you went to a number of them, that's fine. You can just say a variety. And then what the name of the activity was. So for instance, this was a school arts program. And then the number of occurrences, how many times did that specific activity take place? So this specific arts program, how many schools did you take it to, and how many times did that take place? So this was 12. We say we did it at one school, at 12 schools, excuse me, once. So once each time at 12 schools, so that's 12 occurrences. And let's say, for example, the total attendance is another key piece of data. We want to know how many people were there. Say there were 100 students at each school, et voila, 1,200 people were there. Okay, so this is where you're going to tell, this is from 2016, so obviously this will all be updated. This will say 1/1/2017, say you did it for the first part of the year through 5/31/2017. And then say you did an art exhibit, this is a good example too, where this was at Littleton Town Hall Art Center. There was an art exhibit there. It was up for a month. We have that here, 6/1 through 6/30. So there were 30 occurrences of that art exhibit, and the total attendance of people who saw that art exhibit, who went in through the doors to see that art exhibit, were 2,000 people. Okay, before we move on, you'll see there's a subtotal here of the number of occurrences that took place in that county. So you're going to subtotal by county. Arapahoe County total, there were 42 occurrences that I did, and there were 3,200 people total that I saw in Arapahoe County with my activities. Okay, so Adams County now, we did an activity at the North Glen Rec Center. They were called Kid Art Classes. Sounds like a blast. And then we started that in April and went to May. Now, classes are a unique thing because you do not get to count, say there were 6 kids, I'm sorry, say there were 15 kids in the class, you don't get to count 15 kids 6 times. You count the enrollment of students that were 15 total who you saw 6 times. So you don't say 15 times 6 is this. You say, I did this class 6 times and I saw the same 15 students for all of those classes. And this is really exploring the depth, the reach of your organization. Some people worry and say, well, that number is so small, 15, that will look really bad. But when you can have the opportunity to explain that, you say, well, this was a class that we had 15 students enrolled in, and so we got a really deep exposure, and it was kind of a residency with those same 15 kids, and they got exposed to art that much. That has the same amount of impact as, say, doing a concert for 3,000 people, potentially. So, it all depends on how you frame this here. So then there's the Adams County subtotal here. That was the only activity we did in Adams County. We did that again 6 weeks, once per week, and there were 15 students in that class. Okay, last thing on the category here is in September, we did a performance, a choir concert in Boulder at the Dairy Center for the Arts. So we have the county where it took place, the location of the activity, the name of the activity. It was the fall choir concert. Let's say, according to this, we did that over a weekend. So there were 5 performances of that same concert. And over those 5 performances, 750 people were there. Okay, so then the Boulder County total is here. If you did any performances or anything outside the district, you'd be able to list those here. Make sure you list and remember that if you do anything in Douglas County, that the town of Castle Rock and the town of Larkspur are not a part of the Scientific and Cultural Facilities District. So if you do anything in Castle Rock or Larkspur, those would fall into the outside district category. Then at the bottom here, you have all county totals. So you take everything you got here and total it up. We had 53 activities throughout that year, and we saw 3,965 people throughout the year. Okay. One other thing that I want to make clear here is I don't remember what I was going to make clear, so we'll move on. So yeah, so this is the activity record. Again, this is most recently completed, this example. So these are going to be actual numbers here that you tracked. And then, like I was saying before, you then upload your current fiscal year and your upcoming fiscal year. So we're going to go into select a file. We're going to upload a sample file here, uploading. While that's uploading, I'm going to choose a different one to upload here. See, they can work concurrently. And then I'm going to choose this one, and that will upload. So there we go. All 3 upload complete. All 3 of those activity records are now there. The last thing having to do with activities is the percentage chart that you must fill out. So please click here and fill out the template provided. Once completed, convert to a PDF document and upload the space provided below. So when I click here, it will download down here, you see, activities and attendance percentage chart. I'm going to click to open this. I might have to drag this around. We'll see. Wait for it to open. I believe in you. You can do it. Okay, there we go. So this is what this will look like. It will come in protected, so you may have to enable editing. So when you're entering this here, the total number of activities and occurrences, the total attendance at activities. This data should be from your most recently completed fiscal year. So that first chart that we were just talking about, the first one you uploaded for attendance, should match the numbers that are in here, okay? These are actuals, what you actually have tracked in each county. So let's say now we're talking about the total number of activities and occurrences that took place in each county. So let's say in Adams County, we did 4 activities, right? How many people were at those 4 activities? This is not breaking down by county of residence. So we're not worried at this point about how many people lived in Adams County. We want to know at those 4 occurrences in Adams County, how many people were there. So let's say 150. Again, that's not 150 Adams County residents. That's 150 total people who were there. In Arapahoe County, we did 2, and we'll say there were 35 total people there, not 35 total Arapahoe County residents. Let's say that we did 35 in Boulder. We love Boulder. We'll do 35 occurrences there. And there were 2,000 people there. So you see what's happening at percent of attendance at county's activities. It's breaking down, the percentage of where you do your activities here. In Broomfield, we did 4, and there were 32 people there. I'm making this up as I go. And then there were 4 activities in Denver. See, Boulder's really outpacing everyone. So there's 90 people who were there. Douglas County within SCFD, meaning not the towns of Castle Rock or Larkspur. So let's say we did 6 activities there, and there were 25 people there. Jefferson County, there were 3 activities, and there were 45 people there. Outside SCFD in Colorado, none. We didn't do anything outside SCFD. In Colorado, outside Colorado, we didn't do anything. We're a regional organization. Unknown. This is your please don't use this as a catch-all for anything. Do your best to track, but if you have a certain amount of people that you don't know exactly where they were from, you can enter them here. Okay, so that's activities. So see, I messed that up. So there were 2 activities unknown, and there were 38 people from there. Okay, so this will total up everything. So we have 60 activities and occurrences of those activities, and then 2,415 attendance at those activities, because this takes all of this and totals this up down here, okay? Again, I just want to reiterate, this is not the number of residents of that county, it's the total number of people. So again, for activities in Adams County, 150 total people, not 150 Adams County residents, okay? So after we're done with that, we go to File and we can save this as, and I'm going to save this as a PDF. And always remember where you put things. It's very important to know. And also something to remember is that this automatically saves as activities and attendance percentage chart. If you want to change the name so you know exactly what it is and exactly where it is, make sure that you have the organization name in there. That's a good thing to have. And I'm going to say save. So we'll jump back over here to the grant application, and I'm going to say, okay, I'm done with this. Select a file. Where did I put it? I put it right here in current projects, activities and attendance percentage chart, open, uploading, upload complete. There we go. So we have that completed activities chart in there. And what means does your organization use to track attendance? Do you use ticket system? Do you use surveys? Do you ask at the door? And the level of sophistication in this really varies by organization. So if you have someone at the door saying, welcome, what county do you live in? And they make a check on a noteboard, that's perfectly fine way of tracking county of residence and tracking attendance. Do you have a survey where you send out afterwards, or do you send out beforehand or anything like that? So make sure you have a note in here and you let our cultural councils know exactly how you're tracking your organization's attendance here. Yeah, so this is, again, I'm reiterating myself again, but activities and attendance percentage chart doesn't track how many residents of each county are there. That information is provided on the final grant report that you submit. So if you haven't yet submitted your 2018 grant report, then that is where you'll tell us during the year 2017 we saw 200 people from Arapahoe County, 300 people from Adams County, etc. That's where that information comes in. It is not on the grant application itself. So the final grant report is where you break it down by county of residence. So you don't do that here. If you want to include that in your narrative up here somewhere, you can as well. But again, it's on the final grant report, so you don't need to necessarily worry about that at this point. Okay, so I'm going to say save draft because, again, ANDA retentive, and I want to make sure everything saves. And then we're going to make sure everything is here. Yes, all that's there, all that's there, all that's there. It's good. And we're going to say next and move on to the financial information. So here we are in the financial section. I'm going to turn it over to Dana, and she's going to walk us through this section.
Okay, everyone. So this is the financial overview section of the grant application. And Marcus is going to be my scribe because I can't talk and type at the same time. I can only do one activity. So the first part is a detail of contributors. We just want to know what the total funding you received from the following categories for your most recently completed fiscal year. So under corporate, we're going to type something. Now, if you don't know what a corporate contributor is, you can hover over that little question mark. It'll give you examples. Here it says Target, IKEA, Wells Fargo. You can include in there Miller Coors, any of those corporations that fund you. You want to add that information in this line. Foundation, Marcus is going to put a number in there, and I examples of foundations would include Denver Foundation, Fine Arts Foundation, Boulder Community Foundation. Keep in mind also that it will include family foundations, family funded foundations. SCFD is pretty self explanatory. This is what you received in the 2016 grant cycle. Government is non SCFD, so examples for that would be Colorado Creative Industries, National Endowment for the Arts. And if you received any local support from the city, say mayor had a contest or you applied for some funding from the mayor's office and was able to get that funding. And then individuals. Individual is donations that individuals may have given you. And this is very simple and straightforward. The amounts here should be actuals. Now, you will need to upload a list of your major contributors for your most recently completed fiscal year. You may already have this information if you filled out the Colorado Common Grant, so just attach that here. But if you haven't, you can just make a quick list of contributors and the awarded amount received per contributor. So Marcus is going to grab a file. Now, keep in mind that you do not need to include the names of individuals on this uploaded list, even if it's a large private donation by individual. So simply said, you do not need to put individual donations, just list corporate, foundation, SCFD, government um, grants or monies there. Now we're going to go into 15. 15 is just an overview of your revenue. We want to take a look at your organization over 3 years. So we want to see your most recently completed fiscal year, your current fiscal year, and your upcoming fiscal year. So you see the little boxes on the left hand side and it'll say earned revenue, contributed revenue. So what was your total earned revenue for your most recently completed fiscal year? This would include things like ticket sales, performance fees, ads and program books, workshop or class fees, concession or gift shop net sales. Remember, it's net sales. You want to take out the cost of the product. Things that you did to make money for your organization as opposed to contributed income. And those would include things like grants, donations, fundraising, special events, contributed income. So in this column, we want actuals. We are looking at cash budgets. So please back out any in-kind support as we have a separate line item for this type of revenue. So Marcus is going to put in 6,000. That's good. That's good in kind. The actuals for the most recently completed fiscal year should match your P&L, that's profit and loss, that you will attach a little later in this application. Your current fiscal year, this is the budget that was approved by your board of directors. And then what are the projections for your upcoming fiscal year? This is basically the forecast for your organization. So once you fill in the amounts, the total revenue line will auto total. So Marcus is filling in the lines and keep in mind to be sure to put in your in-kind support in the fields labeled in-kind at the bottom. That's a lot of money, Marcus. That's great. That's fantastic. So we're going to move on to 16. So for expenses, you'll pretty much repeat the process, the same process. The actuals, which should again match your P&L, the budget for this year, and this is your current fiscal year, and projections for the upcoming year. Now, on your expenses, you break that down to program expenses, administrative expenses, and fundraising expenses. Program expenses are why you exist as a nonprofit. It is the money that you spend to further your mission. Program expenses are things that if you eliminate them, the program would go away or drastically be impacted. Examples are fees you pay your teachers, actors, museum docents. It could be costs associated with building a set if you're a theater. It could be sheet music if you're a choir and orchestra. Artistic director's salary or education program manager salary, things of that nature. Your administrative costs, on the other hand, are how you exist as a nonprofit. They are those administrative costs incurred as you direct and control your organization. Things such as your internet, paper, pens, pencils, utility bills, cost of accounting, computers, insurance. Now, keep in mind that some expenses can be split across program and administrative categories. A good example is an executive director's salary. This expense can be allocated based on the time spent in each activity. So, how much time is spent on the programming side and how much time is spent on the administrative tasks, such as paying bills and working with your board of directors. So, whatever the breakdown is, you can break down their salary the same way. You can do that with rent. For example, if you have a large building, you can count some of your rent costs towards program expenses and some towards administrative costs. If you have a very small footprint in the building, 10% of those costs can be administrative, as an example. And then the fundraising expenses include publicizing and conducting fundraising campaigns, grant writer salary, maintaining donor mailing lists, and special fundraising events. So Marcus has done a wonderful job. Once you finish filling out these sections, again, it will auto total for you. So right there where it says total expenses, it auto total, and then you have, of course, that spot for in-kind support. If you have in-kind support as revenue above, it should appear as expense, and basically, I'm sorry, if you have in-kind support as revenue, it should appear as as expenses as well. So basically, those numbers should zero out. So if it's 6,000 in your in-kind support revenue, it should be 6,000 in-kind expenses. So once you have all this information filled in, the net surplus or loss will be totaled for you here. So Marcus, we don't have any negatives, so that's good. But if you do have a deficit, in number 17, you're going to list that. So if you have a deficit or debt on your books, please describe what happened and how the board of directors is addressing it. So if any of those numbers are negative, or you have debt or liabilities on your balance sheet, you want to talk about it here in number 17. It could be something very simple as you had to cancel a large event due to weather, but luckily you have the reserves to cover those expenses, and the board of directors is going forward with looking at weather contingency plans. Also, when considering debt, we are asking to report short or long-term debt. So things like loans, mortgages, credit card debt, things of that nature, you want to address in this box. Just point them out and what plans you have in place to pay them off. Keep in mind, organizations, that having a deficit doesn't mean it's a bad situation that reflects negatively on an organization. It just means that you're working. Um, if you don't have any debt or deficit, enter NA into that text box. So we're going to wait. Marcus is typing in something wonderful. And moving down to number 18, this is your opportunity to provide any explanations for items that may raise questions in the financials provided. So example, if your P&L includes in-kind, once that's backed out, the numbers match. So in that 15 and 16 question above, if you have the in-kind but it's listed on your P&L, you can back that out. Once that's backed out, the numbers will match. If you have a large increase or decrease in your budget from year to year, you may want to address that here. For example, if you had a large membership drive one year and you had 1,000 people sign up, and then the next year you had half that, that'd be a good idea to mention any kind of fluctuations in your budget from year to year. Typically, there's a very good reason or explanation for your financials. The more you explain things in this box, the less the council members have to ask questions about your financials during the interview. Thus, you have more time to highlight your organization and programming and the impact on the community. So use this text box if needed. It's only helpful to you in the long run. And now we're to the financial attachments. So we're going to click on the drop down, and the first one is nonprofit with revenues under 500K. So Marcus is going to click on that, and you'll see there's information that's required here. Um, the attachment, you want to attach your financials, your P&L, and your balance sheet. Keep in mind they need to be in P&L format, and that is for the year end PDF, and that is for year end 2017. If you're not quite sure, you hover over that question mark and it says submit these two documents in a single PDF document. So you will need to actually scan those and have them on the same document. Marcus is going to grab that. And then next, you're going to attach your most recently filed EZ or 990. Organizations that normally file the 990N, keep in mind that for the sake of the SCFD application, you will need to file either a 990EZ or a 990. The postcard will not be accepted. So once you actually attach that, we're going to look at it briefly and we're going to save it. And we're going to go on to the next portion. Now, before we do go on to that next portion, go back down, Marcus, for me. Under the organization type, there are three other choices. Pick which organization or which one applies to your organization. It really has to do with your financials and your revenues. So if you're over 750, for example, you want to attach a audit for fiscal year in 2017, we don't want your internals. We actually want an independent audit that is performed. If you are having issues with the audit being done by the time you submit your application, please give us a call in the office and we can walk you through that and give you more information. And then for nonprofit revenues between 500 and 750,000, we want to see a financial review. Again, this should be done by independent auditor. You don't need to do an actual audit. We just need a financial review for that fiscal year in 2017. And again, you can attach your most recently completed or filed 990. Division of Government, we want, again, your attachments to include financials, your P&L for the most recently completed fiscal year, and optional, which is any other documents that may benefit the cultural councils. Okay, great. Now, as soon as we go to the next section, now we're on to the county specific section. So what counties are you wanting to apply for funding? As you check the county boxes, and we're going to choose Boulder and Denver for just very random, the form will auto-populate with both Boulder and Denver's grant request detail. So you have Boulder on top, it's alphabetical, and then Denver below. Now, this is very important. You need to read each county guidelines, and Marcus had mentioned this before, to see what kind of grant your organization is eligible for. Most counties provide general operating support, that's GOS, to their home county organizations. Denver is one that only provides GOS and no project. Arapahoe has GOS to organizations outside their home county as long as the organization can show service to Arapahoe County residents. So make sure that you're reading those guidelines and that you are within eligibility for those particular counties. Now, this information, oh, he's going somewhere. There it is. So those are the guidelines. Those are listed on our website. So please refer to this frequently as you journey through your application, because you want to make sure that you are applying to those counties that you are eligible. Going back to the application itself, this information on A1 explain the funds, how they will be used for the general operation of the organization, and how your organization's activities will benefit the residents of, in this case, Boulder County. This is where you get to shine. This is where you get to make your case to the individual counties as to why they should support your organization. What kind of impact are you having for their residents? What are you doing for those counties? Those are the things that you want to address there. This is where you really get into the nitty gritty and into the specifics at the county level by telling them exactly what you're asking them for and why they should support you. We're going to scroll down. Marcus is going to write some more, and then we're going to scroll down to where it says project support. Not so specific enough. Okay. Now, the project support, this again, check your county guidelines, but we're going to fill this out for Boulder. So we're going to write in the title of our project and then the request amount. Now, there's a little question mark there. Wow, there's a little question mark there. I don't even know how much that is. It says the maximum request of 50% of project budget, or 5,000, whichever is less. So it tells you, it gives you a little hint that we cannot ask for, I think that was 500 million billion. So we'll give you little hints as to what the maximum amount that you can apply for. So hover over there if you're having any problems. And then you want to enter the project start and end dates. Again, be very clear so that the council members understand when you are planning on this project. And then at where the project venue's name, at the project venue name and the address. And that's going to be in B4. So we're just going to add the SCFD, where we're going to We can't add our office. We're in Denver. So, okay, so the Boulder JCC, which is a beautiful facility. And then we're going to go down to the attendance, the anticipated attendees, and then provide a description of the project and how it benefits the residents. And that's going to go in B6. And remember, shine, shine. You want to shine. So you want to, in B7, you want to attach a project budget. And remember, project budgets will include both revenue and expenses for the project. And make sure that you add that in your budget. So add that in your county request. County request is in your budget. So keep that in mind that as you go through, when you have your budget, the county request should be added to that. Okay, so Denver. Denver is pretty much the same thing. Denver does not accept project requests, but it does accept GOS. And so Marcus is going to have $1 million. We're going to have $1 million project. Oh, and then we hover over the question mark and it says we can only request 15% of the most recent completed fiscal year income or expenses, whichever is less, and we may not ask for more than 85,000. So we're going to redo that and we're going to ask for 75. So remember to check those guidelines to see what limits there are for the specific counties. Now we're going to save this part and we're going to go into the next portion of the application. And we actually did that in less than 5 minutes. I didn't see the save come up. Okay, so this portion is your assurances. So there's, how many are there, Marcus? There's 8 of them. You're going to go through all 8. And so the first one says a representative from my organization attended a 2018 SCFD grant workshop or watched this online grant tutorial. So if you're watching us now, you can definitely mark yes. If you went to a grant workshop, you can mark as yes. And so he's going to go through all these assurances and hopefully they are yes. And that one is a board proved your non-discrimination compliance in compliance with the SCFD statement. So that's very important. So we're going to have all these filled out. Then the authorizing person, they're going to sign their name here or type in their name, what the title is, and the date. You can use that helpful little tool over there and just pull down today's date from that calendar. And then we're going to save it. And then we're going to hit next. Now we're into the review portion of your application. So that is going to basically have all of the pages that you filled out right there on one page. We highly recommend that multiple people review your grant application for its completeness and just to make sure it makes sense. We've all been there where we're typing away and everything sounds great, and then you ask someone to look at it and they're like, what are you talking about? So make sure that you've doubled and triple checked your application, and when you feel it's ready to submit, then you can click submit. So everything looks great. So Marcus is going to click submit, and up there it says, would you like to submit your application now? You may not be able to edit your application after it's been submitted. So you have to make sure once that text box comes up and you hit OK. Oh, and we forgot to enter some information that had an asterisk. So it will tell you, it will give you little hints in a red box on information that you may have excluded but are required fields. So now that we've done that, we're going to go back down again and try to resubmit it. Everything looks good. Okay. Yay. It looks like it went through. So you will receive a confirmation email to the email that you used to sign up for the grant application. And so it's going to say, thank you for completing your application. Your application has been submitted. And so you have the opportunity to print it, and you also have the opportunity to save it. So once you hit submit and you've printed your packet, now it will have your application up front with all the attachments behind it. And keep in mind that the wonderful thing about it is there's no county copies. And so you can save it to your computer and you can print it off for other people in your organization to keep a copy as well. So once what are we going to do, Marcus? We're printing it. Okay. Now, a couple of things. Marcus, did I miss anything about the application? Now, just a couple of things. Some final thoughts before we sign off. Please, please, I cannot stress this enough. Get started early. Apply early and submit early. Don't wait until the last minute because things happen and they surely do. And our deadlines, they're fast. They come up fast. If 4 p.m. comes up on the specified deadline dates and you haven't submitted your application or it's incomplete, we can't accept it. And we're sorry about that. And we actually feel really bad. But in order to keep transparency and accountability policies in place, we have to make it fair for everyone. So those deadlines are firm. If you get it to us ahead of time, staff can take a look at your application. We'll let you know if something's missing. So if it's an attachment is not correct or any other issues would preclude your organization from getting funding, we will get in touch with you as long as you do it ahead of time. But if you get it to us a half an hour before the deadline, chances are we're not going to have time to take a look at it. If you get it to us a couple days in advance, we'll be able to get back to you and let you know if something's missing so that you can get that fix done. Late applications won't be accepted. And if you don't have the required attachments in the correct format, they will not be accepted as well. So we're hoping for a great application season where the staff doesn't have to make any phone calls, yay, to say that your organization isn't eligible for funding because of application hiccups. So again, feel free to call us if you have any questions or concerns. Our contact information is on our website. And let's have a great 2008 grant season. Yay, thank you so much for watching and listening, and hopefully we will all see you soon.